Hey, everybody. How's everyone doing on this fabulous December 22nd? Here for, guess what? Podcast number 4 here at Zombie Talk. God. Alright, I have to ask. I've been asking this to everybody who's been on so far. First of all, my special guest this week, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
I am the one and only super ultra mega pain in the you-know-where. But I need no introduction. It is I, the one and only Nathan Moore.
Hey, hey. And everyone can hear him okay, right? And hear me okay? Just making sure before we continue on. But the question I was going to ask you was, Zombie Talk just sounds like a horrible name, doesn't it?
Actually, I don't mind it as long as it's not going on.
Ah! 2 weeks in a row, people like Zombie Talk, because last week Dustin liked it, now you like it.
Hey, at least you got 2 out of 4. It's not bad, you're still batting 500.
Yeah, that's true. Well, this is a very special Zombie Talk because this may be a brand new thing that we're going to have here every Monday night. As you all know, the D&G show hasn't been going lately. They're taking a little bit of a hiatus off. So what better way to broaden the podcast every Monday here on Hitbox than bring on one of the two? So, Mr. Mystery Man, why don't you go ahead and tell everybody who you are and show yourself.
Mystery Man, one of 2, and I think Duke's working right now. It's Gale Thunderstrike, the one of a crowd, one of a million, compared to the only one of name.
Indeed. So, welcome to Zombie Talk. This is your first time as well. So, we have 2, I guess, quote-unquote guests this week, but Gil, you're here to talk about QZW. Am I right?
Down here, saw pretty much in Shimmer. I missed live one. I heard it was a great show, so I checked it out after the fact.
Alright, cool. We'll get to that in just a little bit. So, Nate. What's up, man?
Wow. What's up? No, not much, man. You know, out and about, you know, living the dream, and not the American dream like Dusty Rhodes.
So, just working and...
Working, causing trouble, you know, same old stuff, different day, but it's just this time I get paid for it.
How long have we known each other?
Oh, man. honestly, we can trace the history all the way back. To be quite honest with you, like 1999, because that was whenever we had our very first run-in. Actually, I mean, you really want me to go into that story?
What, you mean the BSTW?
Before that, I'm talking whenever Justice ran that Fed, and you came in, you're like, "Who's the world champion?" I
Oh,
said, "I am."
GWF?
Yeah, GWF, something like that.
Yeah, yeah, go ahead. I don't care.
All right, so I'll set the story for you. You go all the way back. It's the AOL days. Everything's all text based, and you know, a little Lord Thaddeus comes into the room. He's like, "Who's the world champion around here?" I said, "I am." He's like, "Oh, you'll never make it. Ha ha ha. Hew 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 hew." And lo and behold, like 2 years later, in 2001, I show up. He's like, "Hey, you want a title shot tonight?" I'm like, "No, I'll earn it."
That's right. So, so basically, what you're telling everybody listening right now is that I was a complete asshole.
I wouldn't say you were a complete asshole. I mean, come
Maybe
on,
half a cheek of an asshole.
half a cheek.
Yeah.
You're like one cheek and maybe a little bit of the taint.
Oh, ooh, that's a soft spot. That's a fleshy point. The fleshy front bridge.
That's the bridge over troubled waters, buddy.
Yeah, it is. It really, really, really is. So, you came to RCWF. What are your first moments of coming, other than me offering you a world title shot and you saying no? Do you remember who you were feuding with at the beginning? Do you remember who you were friends with? Were there any AO chicks that you might have been involved with? Give us the deets, man.
Let's see. I mean, let's see. I remember feuding with Shags and Outlaw, and then actually teaming with them. I mean, like we were like the Wolf Pack or something like that. I think I'm trying to remember. I mean, it's been like ages. As for AO chicks, oh my god, let's not dig them up for quite a while. I mean, come on.
Okay, all right. We'll leave them in the past. So your first world heavyweight title that you actually won. You remember that?
The first world title I actually won outside of GFW was actually BSCW. Was I actually defeated Bret Hart for the world title in like a almost like a triple cage kind of thing. And like it was weird because even Crow made a run in. It was it was weird, man.
Back then, everybody ran in.
I mean, come on. I mean, I've seen Fat Sting make a run in a man thong, dry humping a turkey during a Thaddeus promo.
Yes, I do seem to recall that. That was something else, I gotta say. So now you're talking about BSTW. What was the skivvy on that? What happened? Enlighten the young people around here what that was all about.
BSCW was pretty much like the WCW to RCWF's WWF. I mean, it literally was like WCW because you had run-ins every match. I mean, like, you turn around and, like, some Joe Schmo would come running in. It was hectic. It was like a glorified clusterfuck.
And then I got pissed off because a lot of the established people went to BSTW. Kind of like how the WCW thing happened in real life, really. And then that's when I said, you know what? I don't need the Crows. I don't need the Chris Cravens. I don't need the Chris Crimsons. I don't need the Crimson Families. I don't need any of those. And that's when Shag stepped up. That's when Slicer stepped up. That's about the time that Roz and Dan Sharu came in. So I'm like, you know what? You old bastards can go over there. Well, I'm going to start focusing on the new guys. And that's how the new era got started. Kind of the classification of like the old ancient era turning into the next era after that, the popularity era, because after that is when RCWF really took off.
Right. I mean, like, you had it was like the old generation went over to BSCW, and then all of a sudden, after BSCW shut down, a lot of the younger guys from BSCW made the jump over to RCWF after I followed. I jumped right over after I won the world title.
Yeah, and I think that you were. So, did you win the belt and then you were like, haha, I'm going to RCWF? Or did you lose it and then you.
I actually won the belt, and then I'm just like, you know what? It's not going to work over here, and I didn't drop it or nothing. I just left.
Okay, so you and there was actually somebody else who did that because it was MJ. Michael Jenkins actually did the same thing. But he did it more of a ploy to hurt BSTW, which looking back in hindsight, it really did because they didn't last too much longer. But that's pretty bad to have two of your world champions they win and then yikes, they move over to the other place.
Right, because whenever I came back, I mean, RCWF was still going, but it was right before you shut it down, and then you morphed it into PPW, where you had like all the different feds, and you had like this big ass draft.
Yeah.
And I remember going to RCWF because that's whenever I actually won my very first RCWF world title.
Yeah, didn't you feud me as Batista, I think? Or was it Kane?
I feuded with you as Kane, and then with you as Batista, and that's whenever the infamous neck break.
Yeah. Let's see, that it's kind of funny you bring up PPW, Power Slam Pro Wrestling, because that was really, really ahead of its time. Because if you look around these days around at Zomspot, well, maybe not so much like as of 2 months ago, but previously, privy to that, you see like Zomspawn has like six E-Feds going each week. That's essentially what PPW was because each Fed had their own Fed owner. Each Fed had their own titles. It was kind of like Zomspawn Gaming, except in AOL chat.
Right, and like you had like a show every night. You'd have RCWF on Tuesday. You'd have I'm trying to remember the other ones. I want to
Uh,
say like WWA, something like that. There,
yeah,
there were like a bunch of them. I mean, hell, we'd have to dig up all them old logs from way back then.
and you know what's funny is I was digging around my website the other day because if anybody listening to this right now doesn't know yet, the Zomspawn website has kind of been changed over. So if you haven't signed up for an account on there, uh, go jump on that because the forums are now attached to the site, and it's really awesome. It's looking awesome. But anyways, I was digging around to the site the other day, and guess what I found? All of the archives from the RCWF days.
There's a lot of good reading material in that though. But I mean, you can sit there, you can read all the old matches. There's like even whenever like RCWF morphed into NGPW, that was my favorite time. To actually be in the Fed.
Right, and we'll get to that a little in just a minute because that's a little bit later. But before that, we had you mentioned the PPW thing, and that lasted for I mean a good couple months, and then it just kind of got to the point where half the Fed owners that were supposed to be running their Feds inside PPW weren't, and then people just kind of weren't showing up in some of the Feds. So I'm just kind of like, we'll just condense it down, and because you know Dave Crow, he wanted to run his own, and then I think CTC was running one, and I was running one, and I think Greg Martin
Jake
was
Michaels was running another one.
Jake Michaels and Greg Martin was running one, and I think that's like five or six that are listed. I think there were six, and then yeah, that's kind of it. Kind of lasted a few months, and I was that after that was when I brought back. Was it? Let's see. There was GCW and
Yeah, there was GCW. There was
NRCW, right?
NRCW was before GCW.
Okay, so it must have been like PPW, and then I'm like, yeah, you know what, whatever, and then NRCW started.
Right.
And during those days, the top dudes were, you had as much as you probably hate me to mention it, but I mean, there was the Eliminator running around. You had Jake Michaels running around as kind of top at the time. Um, the during the end of the PPW thing was kind of the deal of the whole um, because I remember Shifty Bradley winning the Universal title, which was the top title in all of PPW since there were 6 feds involved. You had to have a very top title, and that was called the Universal title. Shifty Bradley won that, and then the end of
Right.
the
I
PPW
remember
thing.
that.
Yeah, that was like around the time of that Rumble that I screwed. Was it then or I don't know. I went into this with Mark in the first podcast, but around that time was like the whole WOY thing, and then after PPW, a lot of people kind of went off to HPWF and RPW, and then Keith had just started Big East, BECW, and a lot of people went over there, and so a lot of the established guys went over there, and then I continued on with NRCW and did exactly what I did a few years before that with the whole BSTW thing. I'm like, all right, you guys go over there, fine, whatever. And then, I'll just start promoting these guys here that were previously like mid card and stuff. And that's when like Jake
Right,
Michaels
because
got the push and
yeah, you had Jake Michaels get the push, you had the Eliminator get the push, you had Guy Silencing finally come about, you had X Fighter starting to build up, you had myself building up.
yeah, and that was when about the time that Oliver came back, Bret Hart came back, and then Scarecrow was getting main event, and I'm trying to think of who else. Rave was coming in about that time. Adam Brown came in 2001, so he had been in there. He had been in there for a while before that, but he was also getting kind of a squeeze there during that time.
Right, I mean, like NRCW was starting to be the building point, and then after NRCW kind of went its way because you decided to take time off, and then you handed the reins over to Jake, and he screwed up and handed it off to Jay, and then all of that happened. I was like, you know what, I'm taking a little break,
Right.
and then that's whenever you said, you know what, I'm gonna bring the RCWF back, but I'm gonna call it GCW, and that's whenever it exploded again.
Yeah,
It got
NRC
better.
NRCW was all right, and then at the time I was like, man, I'm just not feeling it anymore. Just, I'm just gonna take a couple months off and whatever. So I handed it off to Jake Michaels, who was he assumed the role position of head booker and everything, and he, I guess, got Eliminator got in his ear to be the webmaster or whatever. And so his power increasingly grew as time went on. And then before you know it, Jake's not really doing much anymore except maybe watching the chat. And now Eliminator's doing everything and running everything. And between those two, my biggest deal was they weren't keeping it exclusive anymore. Because back in those times, I was all about being exclusive. I didn't want people to be in like 16 different feds at the same time. Because you'd open it up, you'd have like the RCWF World Champion losing to some mid card whatever in HPWF, and it'd make RCWF look like shit. And that they would try to do that shit and pull that off. So during my break, I get wind that hey, they've opened the membership up to anybody can join. So here comes all these people that left to go to BECW and RPW and HPWF on it, and suddenly they're back in, and it's like, whoa, what are you doing? That's I've never done that ever. So I got a little pissed off, and then I'm like, what are you doing? And Jake's like, oh, my mistake, whatever. And then next thing you know, here comes Eliminator, and I think that was the thing where they're like running the deal, and then I had already been away for like 5-6 months at that time. And then I suddenly came in. Like, I was, like, so incognito. I was kind of like a martyr at that point because I just wasn't around anymore. I wasn't around. I completely took a sabbatical for, like, 6 months. Then suddenly you saw
Right, I remember that.
And so they're, like, running their private chat event. Someone linked me in, and I'm like, all right, tonight's the night. I'm coming back. And then suddenly it's like I forget my screen name, but it was like blank has entered the room, and the event just stopped. I think they were in the middle of a match, and then everyone was like just marking out so bad because, oh, Tad's back after like 6, 7 months. We haven't seen him. We haven't talked to him. The website's been down. He's, by all intents and purposes, he's moved on with his life. He doesn't care anymore. And then suddenly, here I am. I'm back. Has entered the room, and the event. I remember that the event just stopped. They couldn't continue
Right.
because
It was like something like you'd see Sting coming down from the rafters right in the middle of it. I mean, everything just screeched to a halt.
yeah, that's probably one of my funnest moments of history was just the fact that people were at that point people were just so tired of the way things were being run. They were just wishing for me to come back and have a stable Fed to be in. And so when I came back unexpectedly, not telling anybody, that's when just everybody marked out. And then that's when I realized, oh wow, these people actually do appreciate and want me to come back. So that's when I came up with the idea of GCW, Global Championship Wrestling, because at that point NRCW was dead. I mean, that wasn't going to continue on anymore. And then GCW was pretty awesome. That was a good time for you, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, GCW was amazing because you ended up with brands. You had Showdown and Glory. It was like Raw versus SmackDown. It was like, here, okay, Showdown had a great show. Let's see Glory top that. And then Glory would come out and they'd, show up, and then it'd be like, all right, Showdown, your turn, and it was pretty much the funnest time ever because I was like, whenever I got in that rivalry with Guy Silencing, and that like blew up.
Yeah, that's when we had the first ever X Division match, and then you pulled you both pulled the title down at the same time, and then that's how the world title for the other brand was established because no one could determine who won.
Right, and I mean, that was like the only time that we actually rolled the same number.
Yeah, that was pretty sick. I gotta admit that was an awesome moment. And so GCW was running along. Babu and GVD was a tag team. I know they feuded. Roz and Shoru came back for that. I know the Bradleys came back for a little while.
Yeah, the
That.
Bradleys returned. They went under the name The Talent because they didn't want to run the We Own You name.
Right. Yeah. So that was a good little. I know Rainer Crimson and Rogan started coming into their own during that time with the hardcore stuff.
Yeah, especially whenever they'd go into like random chat rooms and just snot out of each other
Oh
until they
yeah.
both got kicked out.
Going here we are at the right in lesbian inn. Let's have a 24/7 hardcore. I watched a couple of those. Those were pretty funny. I gotta admit. Of course, these
I actually did a couple of them with Rogan. We went into like the '50s chat, and we were beating the snot out of each other in like a pink Cadillac, and
that was
people with the big hula hoop skirts.
that
It was
was
great.
I think it was Rogan who came up with that whole idea. But if he was actually the one that was an amazing. That's probably the best idea he's ever contributed to EFED wrestling in this category. That's really amazing. Because I would have never thought of that. Just taking a match in the other, starting a random wrestling match in the middle of these other people that have been role playing as vampires or whatever, and then here comes two like wrestlers hitting each other with trash cans and shit in the middle of it. That's awesome.
Like they go up to like hide and suicide cliffs and throw each other off. And
Yeah,
it was funny. I mean, and then also with the GCW thing, it also brought in the idea of we actually recorded our own promo for like our WrestleMania event. Remember?
yeah, that's right. Yeah, everyone just kind of had like a 30-second deal to say something on an audio clip, and then they emailed it to me, or I think I'm the one that put it together. Um,
Yeah, you were the one that put it together.
and then it kind of played everyone's voices. And I remember someone what had a wrestler that was supposed to be like intimidating and like scary, and then he did his wrestler's voice, and he sounded like totally not, just not at all. Like I remember,
Gee, I wonder who that was.
I remember
More
you.
likely, I think it was me.
No, no, no. You were fine. You were fine. I didn't have any. But I remember everyone laughed because this one. I can't. Honestly, I swear I can't remember who it was. But it was someone that did a voice on the thing, and the wrestler was supposed to be like one of the menacing ones. But when you heard the person who role played as them, he was like, yeah, and it's like, whoa,
Wow.
we can't use. It's like Max Height's Thunder character, being the slasher or Norns or something like that.
Right.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
And I don't have the deepest, manliest voice in the world when I do CAS.
Neither do I. I mean, like, whenever I get excited, my voice gets higher, you know?
Yeah,
It's,
but
like,
this
weird.
was so off the radar. It was just hilarious. But we still used it. That was kind of like the running joke during that. But that's I'm surprised you remember that because that's pretty cool.
I remember that. I thought that was, like, my crowning achievement because, it was like, oh, man, I'm main eventing against Guy Silencing. I just won the Rumble. It's all good, all gravy. Let's do this. And
Now let's talk about that Rumble, the GCW
okay,
Rumble that
let's
you
talk
won,
about it.
because I remember that now.
2004.
Yeah, the 2004 RCWF quote unquote Rumble, where it was down to Nathan James, Thaddeus, Babu, and Crow, or Guy
I-
Silencing.
I think it was Guy Silencing because, he was going to be like, well, I'm the champion, and if I win that,
That's
I don't have
right.
to defend the belt.
That was back when I let the world champion actually be in the Rumble match. Yeah.
Right, and Silencing was eliminated by Babu.
Yeah, why don't you walk us
That-
through the end of that Rumble match.
Babu eliminated Guy Silencing, then he eliminated me. Then you grabbed the mic and said, oh, by the way, number 52 is Nathan James. So I got back in. Thaddeus threw out Babu, and then Thaddeus like, come here, hug me, went over to hug you,
I love this story.
and then it's like, tries to put him in BSD and then throw him out, and all of a sudden, skin the cat, back in, turn around, super kick, out goes Thaddeus.
And what fucking, you got a 30, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah! Son of a bitch. That's what
Yeah,
I get.
I gotta be on that one. You had like a 29.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh shit, I lost. All of a sudden, 30.
Yeah, I was like, oh, I got this in the bag. Sweet. I'm finally going to win a Rumble match. That, off of, well, I guess technically that was also a screw job too, for letting you back in, but, oh well, whatever. I was going to win. I don't care. I was young. I was cocky. I was an ego. I was an asshole. Not like
Yeah,
me.
you were young and hungry.
Yeah, I was. But yeah, that backfired on me. I was like, son of a bitch. But yeah, you super kicked me out, and that's what happened. But that's a prelude to what would happen in NGPW in that Rumble. And that is quite the story.
Right, the NGPW Rumble.
But
Once
first,
again,
before we get into that, we got a time gap to fill here. We got the end of GCW, which was like '04, the end of '04. We
the
lost.
revival of RCWF.
Right. But before
right
that,
after GCW.
the end of GCW was kind of the kind of a sour point for a lot of reasons. But one of the reasons was we lost Andy.
Right.
In
Whenever Andy died of cancer in October.
Yeah, he had leukemia, and he died in, I think it was October of '04. Yeah, that X-Fighter. Many of you may have seen his character here in the multimedia era, since the Justin TV era, as the X-Fighter. That's why he comes back from time to time, kind of like a memory deal, but he died from leukemia. He was a good... If I were to compare him with someone that's running around today, he would be like a... He'd be kind of like a Libby, right?
Yeah, you'd say he'd be kind of like a Libby, but he always had them wise-ass comments, and I mean, you'd want to hate the kid, but you absolutely loved him.
Yeah, he was a good kid. Yeah, we lost him, and that was kind of a bad point for us. And then I can't remember why GCW went down exactly. I think I just wanted to take another break after a while again.
Well, you wanted to take a break. Also, the fact that the Eliminator wanted to merge both belts, and he kind of ended
Oh,
up doing that, and it
that's when I
pretty much killed
really
everything.
got pissed at him because that's when he really started doing some pulling some shit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like he
yeah,
wanted to
I
change
remember
the
now.
top 100 list.
I remember now. I remember now. This is what pissed me off the most. Remember, we had Man of the Globe back then.
Right, right.
We had
Yeah.
Man of the Globe, and Jordison had won it like 4 months in a row, and was just totally hyped out. It was awesome. And then, he asked me, "Oh, can I do it?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure, that's fine. You're not the character really isn't doing anything anyways." So he gets in there, he beats Jordison, and it's like, okay, that's an awesome crowning jewel to have for your wrestler in this E-Fed. That's great. Next thing you know, he's asking for a world heavyweight title shot. And I don't know what happened or how it happened, but he got it. And then at that time, if you remember, Nate, Silencing had been champion for like 200 days, 300 days.
Yeah, he was a long-term world champion. He was like almost to I want to push the 190 some mark or something like that.
Yeah. So he had been champion for a long time, and back then, a 200-day reign was amazing because we're talking chat days. Because titles were put on the line quite frequently back then. It wasn't like it is now, where I kind of keep the champions safe to give them kind of a long reign. Back then, you probably defended your title once every week, if not once
Oh
every
God,
2 weeks.
God, yeah. I mean, the term workhorse was definitely used around then.
Yeah. So that was really impressive for Guy Silencing to hold the belt for that long. And then next thing you know, he wants a shot against him. Somehow he gets it. He beats him. And then now you've got an arrogant guy that has just won Man of the Globe after someone else had been winning it for like 3 to 4 months, and also just beating a guy who just held the world title for around 200 days. Now being even more cocky about it, and that's kind of everyone's mood just kind of went down from there because I hate to like talk bad about somebody all these years later, but I mean that's just what happened. Certain people
Right. I mean, it's just sometimes your ego gets inflated, even though it's just chat. I mean, his ego was out of control.
and that's really unfortunate. But that's a huge contribution why GCW kind of went down. And then, I just wanted to kind of get away from it and have a break. And I guess that's when I let you kind of handle the reins. And then he got in your ear again, just like he did with Jake a year before. And then at that time, I had been doing the top 100 superstars of all time. And then I guess he wanted to rewrite it.
Yeah, he wanted to rewrite it, and he got mad because I refused to put him up at number one.
And that's the thing. When I did it, I had always put Thaddeus as number one. And it wasn't because of any of the bullshitty shit things I did role playing. It was just for the mere fact that there wouldn't be an RCWF if there was never a Thaddeus. I mean,
Right, and I mean that's like he threw a fit. People like John, R.B. Bradley, you name it, Crow, Outlaw. The list goes on and on. I can go on until I'm blue in the face.
right. I kind of contribute Thaddeus as kind of like if there's no Thaddeus, there's no RCWF. If there's no RCWF, there's no Thaddeus. You know what I mean? You can't have one
Right.
and not the other. So
I look at it like if you really want to go back to the old wrestling, I'd consider Thaddeus Bruno Sammartino.
yeah, and that's barring that. I actually did have some pretty amazing accolades as Thaddeus' character. I mean, I don't really like to talk about it because back then I was young and
Well, we're going to talk about it anyway because I actually know how many reigns Thaddeus had as a world champion. He had 25 reigns as a world champion. He was the New York Yankees of EFED.
Yeah, he was what Ric Flair and Triple H hoped to be.
Right, you had Thaddeus with like 25 reigns. You had Crow with like pushing 20. You had John Chaos. You had Nathan Moore now with like 11 reigns. You had... It's like looking at like baseball history of how many teams won the World Series.
Well, the biggest contribution for that is the fact that the very earliest days that RCWF was even a thing, it was me and Oliver as Bret Hart just sitting there having matches back and forth for the world title. So, like, 10 of those were just from that.
Right.
We just,
I mean...
we just juggle the belt back and forth.
It wasn't like, near the end of WCW where, like, every week the fucking world title would change hands.
Yeah. But that's like a huge part of why Thaddeus has like 25 world title reigns or whatever, which doesn't sound as ridiculous these days when you have people in WWE like Cena and Orton and them like an Edge, umpteen-time world champion. But back in those days, that was like, wow, only Ric Flair was kind of like the pinnacle of being even close to that. But
right, everybody wanted to be Ric Flair because, hey, look how many runs he had with the belt.
Yeah. So that was a lot of fun, but, I was like 14 years old, 15, 16, 17. I was a cocky little shit. I booked myself in a lot of shit, but I also gave other people opportunities too. And I want to think that as I got older and I matured, that it got better and better and better as time went on. I would like to compare the Tad of like the old RCW to right now Tad and say I've definitely matured out of that terrible shell that was the little kid just wanting to go into business for himself all the time and put himself over and screw everybody else.
Right, like, you'd have the people that would come in and say, oh, you people were just Tad's lapdog and blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. It's like, what do you mean? We're not politicking nothing.
Yeah. So then the GCW went down, and then I'm like, you know what, let's bring the actual RCWF name back. And that was the end of 04. And,
right, that was whenever, finally Toker won the big one.
Yeah.
Crow was back, I was back.
And we had
Tyrone Reyes coming up.
Yeah, Tyrone Reyes.
Mike D.
Mike T.
Yeah.
Mike T.
Mike T. I called Mike D. I don't know why I did that.
You had Rita Caliendo in there. You had Nixie Anderson. You had, I think Sam came back for that for a little bit. Actually, I even think the Eliminator came back for that.
Yeah, he came back, but he was rather short in stature, if you remember.
Yes. The infamous. No, that's what happened at the end of GCW.
Yeah,
because he left. He left with the belt.
Right.
And then I'm like, okay, asshole, you want to take my world title and quit and start your own Fed, which is what he did. Yeah, it's all coming back to me now. That's exactly what happened.
I remember that because you messaged me. You're like, hey, I got this perfect idea. Just follow my lead.
That's never a good thing when I come to you. And that's never a good thing when I come to you and say, hey, I've got a perfect idea. You know something is about to go down. So
every time you say follow my lead, I'm usually like, oh my god, either this is going to be real bad or this is going to be actually funny.
So tell these newcomers, tell these new boys and girls what happened. What was my great idea at the end of GCW? Because my world champion had just left and he'd taken it to his own Fed.
Your world champion left with both belts. Now this is the world title and the federation title. Okay, remember we had two brands. He took both belts and took off running. So all of a sudden you messaged me on AOL. You're like, hey, I got this idea. Follow my lead. I'm like, okay, sure. Let's do whatever you got in mind. You're just like, ha ha ha, you'll like this. I'm like, okay. So all of a sudden, Thaddeus is out there and he's making a challenge and he wants the belt back. I'm going to be the world champion. All of a sudden, the Eliminators chanting intro or whatever started playing. And all of a sudden, this little 3-foot tall midget comes waddling down to the ring, both belts, you know, gets in the ring, puts his hands up like he's about ready to punch him, and, you know, Thaddeus got his hand on Mini Eliminator's head, and then he just fucking pushes him over and covers him. It was great.
Yeah, that was the Mini Eliminator, and Thaddeus pinned him for the belts.
Because if I remember correctly, you said that you would never end the Fed with some asshole carrying my belts.
Yeah, I probably have said that quite a few times actually.
Right.
So that was the end of GCW. I felt
Right. That was the end of GCW. Then the RCWF came back, and then once again all hell broke loose because of you brought up the idea of betting on matches, and if you accumulated so much, you could cash it in on a world title shot. And that's where all hell broke loose.
Yeah, because Yancey ended up winning and got the world heavyweight title shot against you, and then he beat you. And we're talking
Right.
like a character that was like mid-card at best.
Yeah, he was mid-card, but also he refused to sell. He could not work a match to save his life. He was Rainer Crimson, pretty much.
Yeah.
Just in a wheelchair.
But that wasn't so much what I mean. That was what was happening in the right then and there at that time. And I know you lost your stomach for wanting to do anything after that. But the other thing that was going on big time at that time was the Umbrella Nationals.
Right, because, you know, you're like, oh man, we're going to do the Umbrella Nationals. It was actually the following week after that fiasco.
Right.
And, you know, I left with the sour taste in my mouth. I just said, you know what, screw it. We started up the quote-unquote retirement home. And then you had good old Eliminator come back and say, hey, I'm running Team RCWF. Why don't you come back? I'll give you the belt back. I'll fire Yancey right now. And I'm like, yeah, no.
Right. So, if you guys don't, many of you probably won't understand this, but for the Umbrella Nationals back then, it was huge. It was a very monumental thing for AOL eFed wrestling. And the reason for this is because for so many years, I was on bad terms with these other eFeds that like to pride themselves on role-playing longer, more descriptive, and have more mature matches and events. Whereas my outlook on it was, oh, you're brand new, you barely know how to type. You know, it doesn't matter, whatever. Type what you can, you'll learn as you go. I'm not going to make fun of you or call you a noob or anything like that. I'm not going to immediately give you a push or anything like that, but hopefully as the more you do it, you learn, you get experience, and you learn to get better. And their outlook on that was, wow, what a bunch of fucking noobs. Half of them don't even know how to type. They can't spell correctly, blah, blah, blah. And then, you know, it'd be like a DDT in RCWF would be like maybe a paragraph in AOL. Maybe 2, maybe 3. A DDT to them would be like 6 paragraphs, 6 posts, chat posts in
Right,
AOL.
like 6 paragraphs describing how you're going to put them in a front chancery. You're going to look around. You're going to smack them across the back, drop back, plant them on their head. I mean, that's, like I used to always say, you know, that's great. You want to post every little thing about your hair whipping around. That's fine. I could care less.
Right, but
that
was their deal,
though.
though.
To the point, you know?
That was their deal, though. They prided themselves on being elite.
Listen to what you just said. That was their dildo. Think about it.
Yeah, well, I mean, that too. But for so many years, I mean, we're talking like early 2005 at this rate. And I started and got to know them about 98, 99-ish. So you're thinking like 99 to 2005 that we hated each other's guts?
Right.
And then finally in 05 was when I started talking with Eric from HPWF, and I'm like, hey, I don't even know how the convo got started. We just started talking. I'm like, hey, dude, it's been a long time. We're sort of kind of starting to grow up now. Let's just put that shit behind us, and let's learn to coexist. And let's just have fun. And no, because back in those days, it was normal for someone to like bust into the chat room and like in all caps like scroll shit like RCWF sucks, fuck you, fucking noobs, blah blah blah, and then we do the same thing to them. It was just
Right.
back and forth.
I mean, yeah, it was pretty childish, but like, you started having a somewhat civil relationship with Eric,
I
which
did.
actually will lead us into whenever we talk about, NGPW, because actually there's a very good story in that
There
around
is
2006 in NGPW.
right, but in the Umbrella Nationals, that was like the first time. It was kind of, if I were to make an equivalent of that to something in real life that people nowadays could pertain to, it would be like Vince McMahon and Bret Hart coming to terms.
Right.
It's a moment that you never thought would ever happen, but here's these quote unquote noobs of RCWF in the same event with these quote unquote elite guys from HPWF and RPW and BECW and WWA finally doing
Right.
an event in the same chat
The way
room
I
without.
looked at it was like, it was kind of like the AWA Super Clash, like whenever they partnered up with the NWA and WCCW and all that, and had that big event in like Comiskey Park.
Right. And there was a bit of drama in there, but I mean I was expecting that anyways because you've had these two groups of people for so long, for like 10 or whatever years in their own feds, and now they're collaborating with one another. Obviously not everyone's going to get along with everybody, but for what it was, I think it ran off good. And other than being accused of trying to cheat and stack the points, which I wasn't, which I'll never forget, and I really never appreciated that accusation. But
And the funny part about that is, they're like accusing you of trying to mess with the points, but you were like me at the same time. We were both like saying, screw that, we're
no,
done.
because I had made it. Well, it wasn't necessarily points as it was the rules of the chat. There were certain
Right.
dice rules that were coming into question. Like in RCWF, you could use a taunt system to add +1 to your dice and other crap like that. And I guess I had not made it 100% known, although I had told anybody who asked me what the rules were for that. And now, there was just a big stink about it. But the event went on. It happened. It took place. It ended. It was 2 nights. It was 2 nights long because it was so big. But at that rate, and this is what you were getting into, I had already let it be known that, look at what I've achieved here. For all these years, RCWF hated these guys, and these guys looked down at us and called us noobs and whatever. And here we are doing an event with these guys after all this time. And for me, it was like, what else? What else is there for me to accomplish?
Right.
I've done everything that you could possibly imagine that you could do in AOL eFed Wrestling. As a character in an eFed or running a federation. There's really literally nothing left, because at that rate my accolades were, an event every night of the week, maxing out public chat rooms, maxing out PRs, private rooms, going to AOL specific boosted chats, which allowed like 30 extra chatters to be in there, hijacking one of those and maxing that out. It's like there's really nothing left for me to do to prove, and so that was going to be like my end all be all and calling it good. But after that happened, and I think HPWF won the Umbrella Nationals when it came down to it, but I didn't care at that rate.
Yeah.
I was just happy to have the event go down, and I still am. That's a huge achievement for me, and the quote unquote political world of eFed Wrestling was that we could patch things up and do that. But, me and you, that's when the retirement home came in. And for like 4 months, we were just like chilling and doing whatever. And
Yeah, I mean, like, we'd sit there and we'd be linking stuff and BSing and running that music program in the chat, and like we'd take control of each other's playlists and irritate each other.
yeah. And then people would always come in, hey, are you going to be starting a Fed again? Are you going to be doing it? I'm like, no, I'm done. And then suddenly March 2015, I'm like, yeah, let's do it. New Glory Pro Wrestling. We'll start it up.
Yeah, because it was actually Rogan that came to us. He's like, "You guys need to get back into it. We need this."
Yeah, it was
And so,
Rogan and Silent Scene.
Yeah, so in like 2005, April 2005,
Or 20.
hello NGPW.
Yeah, 2005. Did I say 2015? Nah.
Yeah, you said 2015.
Oh, well. My senile is getting to me. So, 2005. March 2005.
2005, NGPW begins, and
Yeah.
right off the bat, I'm like, well, I want to retire Nathan James, and you wanted to retire Thaddeus, so we're like, let's do it. You still had Tad Peters, and I'm like, what should I do? You know what? I'm naming my character directly, completely after myself.
Just like I had done with Tad Peters.
Right.
And so that was the birth of Nathan Moore, the wrestler.
Right. The Nathan Moore era started in April of 2005 because right off the bat we're like, you know what? Let's go after tag titles. Let's be tag team.
And that's when you started Nathan Moore. That's when I was like, you know what, Thaddeus has done his thing. I'm going to start focusing on Tad Peters now, the son. And that's when we came up with, okay, so you're going to be Nathan Moore. I'm Tad Peters. What's our last names? All right, we'll just be Moore Peters. And we'll have fun with it, and we'll roll with it. And that was the joke, Moore Peters.
Right. That was the joke because we said if we'd ever run for president, it would be, we'd get the, homosexual vote because,
Right.
Hey, that's what they want, more Peters.
What do you want to vote for? More Peters, of course. So that was the tag team. We ended up actually being pretty damn good as a tag team.
Right. And the best part was all of a sudden, you'd have us doing promos where we dress up like Roz and Sharu and ride down to the ring in rascal scooters.
Yeah, those were we were like the New Age Outlaws of 2005.
And then, there was a time like right after Hawk died, we dressed up as the Road Warriors.
Yeah, we would dress up and like do all kinds of shit that you would probably see on like Jackass with Johnny Knoxville. And we'd make fun of our opponents. We'd dress up a certain way. I mean, like you said, we faced Stan Shorey and Roz, who at that time were considered kind of veterans at that point. Kind of maybe a little bit over their prime. And so that's... you dressed up as Roz, I think, and I dressed up as Shoru, and then we came out in like walkers and scooters and shit.
Right. We pretty much, like, ruined our opponents. Like, remember the time we were feuding with Homicidal Eddie and Geith and
Team DDT.
I'm trying to remember who else.
I think Jason Jason Steele or something. I don't know.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah,
I mean, we pretty much just like that was the night that we were supposed to defend the tag titles against Geith and Homicidal Eddie, and we pretty much no-sold them the entire night.
We did, because you didn't like Geith at all.
Right, because me, I don't lie, I was never into the whole fantasy thing, but like whenever you bite someone's neck and try to, bust their carotid artery and stuff like that, I'm like, yeah, that's pushing it a little too far.
Yeah, he was a strange one for sure. But yeah, that was also that was Snowbrawl 05. That was the same night that Jack Vegas took on
the Jack Vegas streak.
Christian Cage. And Jack Vegas was like 12 or what was it, 13 or 16-0 in chat matches.
He was 16-0. Scott Hall was also undefeated. He was like 12-0.
Yeah, and he lost too.
Defended the U.S. title
the same night. Yeah. So Jack Vegas, which many of you know here recently from the RCWF invasion in QZW a couple months back, he was like 16-0 going into Snowbrawl 2005, and he got the World Heavyweight title shot, and he was undefeated. So everyone's thinking like, oh shit, it's going to be like Goldberg again. And he went in and he lost to Christian Cage. Cage did there, and he didn't win. And then the same night, I was Scott Hall, or was it Hassan?
No, you were Scott Hall.
Okay, I was Scott Hall, and I was also undefeated. I was like 13 or 14-0, and I had the U.S. title shot against Ralph Gion, who is Rave's secondary character, which is based off of
um, the guy from Fatal Fury, Terry Bogard. I think that's the video game character's
I
name.
think.
But that was supposed to be Ralph Gion, and I also lost. So the two undefeated streaks lost that night, and everyone was like all up about the undefeated streak. They were hoping that they won, but we both lost. But yeah, that was a
Right,
fun.
but even we fast forwarded, we went all the way to Snowball. I mean, we need to go back because that was also I actually won the Rumble back to back years, '04 and '05, but I did it with two different characters.
Right, yeah, you did it as Nathan James when you super kicked me out of the match, and then you did it again. Let's talk about that because this is something in no, seriously, this is something
Yeah,
in EFED history.
Yeah, because yeah,
This is a when you think about EFED history that you've all been a part of, you never ever have a situation where you have a tag team. They are the tag team champions, and one of them.
and you were the world champion at the time too.
Yeah, that's what I was getting to next. Was we were the Moore Peters were the tag team champions. Tad Peters was the world champion, and then here we go going into the Rumble match. Nathan Moore's in the Rumble match, and guess what? Nathan Moore wins the Rumble match of 2005. So here you go, ladies and gentlemen, at WrestleMania 2005, you've got Tad Peters, the world champion, taking on his tag team champion partner, Nathan Moore, in the main event for the world title.
And the funny part is WWE ripped us off for WrestleMania 23 whenever Shawn Michaels and John Cena were tag team champions and Cena was the world champion.
Right. That just goes down as like the list of things that WWE has taken from RCWF history. It's just crazy how that works. But yeah, that was an amazing moment as well. And then NGPW lasted till like around 2007, and
Yeah, 2005 was good, but 2006 was like the year of rivalry.
yeah, 2006 was okay, but wasn't as good as the first year. And then '07 was just kind of like eh. But during that time, I guess we should also mention that's when Mark finally came back and decided to join us regularly. Although he wasn't John Chaos, he was a little French menagerie clown, and he acted like a total fucking noob, typing like Chucky. No offense, Chucky, but he would type like that, and everyone's like, "Who's this new kid that decided to join? There's this character called Devil Pyro. Who the fuck is this guy?" And I was like, I don't care, whatever. He types like that. It's all good. He'll learn eventually. He doesn't cause any problems. He's cool. And fucking come to find out at the end of the fucking thing, it's fucking Mark the whole time. Like 2 years later, acting like a fucking noob. It's like, you son of a bitch.
Right, because he was going to be feuding with, it was either DJ Turlac or
It was Nero
Mr.
Cross.
Highlight.
It was Nero Cross and DJ Turlac, I believe. And then he lost to Nero Cross, I think, and then that's when he revealed that Devil Pyro was actually John Chaos under the mask the whole time. Oh, it was DJ Turlac. All right, you corrected me. But yeah, that was like crazy because that was like a year and in months of just acting like that, only to reveal. So that was.
Oh, I mean, that's like why I said that 2006 was a year of rivalries, because I mean, I had a great one with Jordison, which ended up in probably one of the best dog collar matches I ever took part in.
Yeah, that in GPW was, or actually no, GCW was the birth of Nosferatu, but yeah, you mentioned Jordison. Jordison and Nosferatu had some fucking awesome matches too.
Yeah, and then I had that singles run against Raws. That was one that even culminated in a match at HPWF's version of WrestleMania.
Yeah, you went to HPWF and had a run there. That was cool. I dropped by. Actually, even Tad Peters was in HPWF for a bit. I think I had 3 matches.
Yeah, I was in there in like 2007.
Yeah, but that was the end of that was kind of the end of it.
Yeah, that was before you brought back the RCWF for one last round in the chat era.
Right. Yeah, and we'll get into that. But after NGPW kind of went down, then you went to join HPWF. I know Mark was there. and even I joined as Tad Peters. I had like 4 matches, 3 matches, something like that. And so all of us were in
Yeah, because
HPWF.
I remember because I came to you and I asked you, I said, is it okay if I go to HPWF for a little bit to just see how it goes?
Yeah, and I was like, yeah, that's cool. I don't care. And then I eventually ended up joining myself. And I was kind of, I think I was booked maybe in a contendership match for like a mid card belt at some point, and I lost. But I didn't care. I was just happy to just finally be a member for once, not have to worry about running anything. But they kind of their management kind of dropped down, and you could tell they weren't as enthusiastic about running it as years before, and so that kind of just went down. And so now there's really honestly nothing left in EFED wrestling on Dice other than WCE, which is the 2D6 crap. And
Right, or the what was it? IWA whenever we were invited into their Rumble and they really screwed that one up.
oh yeah,
If you really want to tell that story.
the 2D6ers invited us NGPW to go over there, and the dum Chris, the dum who ran that Fed, put all so like he had like a 30-man rumble, and like the first 15 entrants, let's just say the first 20 entrants were IWA people. The last 10 entrants were NGPW people. So we all came in the last 10 spots. Who do you think was gonna win? So Nate wins that. Fucking Mr. Rumble over here.
You know, that's like that was
And
my calling card. I was like Mr. Rumble.
right, and so everybody was pissed off in that Fed because he had invited us over, and we got to like the last 10 spots, and we won their Rumble match. And then you went on to get the, or no, it was for the belt. Their Rumble was for
Yeah,
the
it was
belt.
for their world title.
Yeah, so you won their Rumble, you won their world title, and then like a month later, they all got so pissed off that we won their belt and their world title that they like screwed you over and they redid it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It was great, but also around that time, that was also whenever Mike Metal jumped ship from NGPW. He went to IWA and he took the US title with him, which really,
oh
you know,
yeah,
I mean,
I
at that
forgot
time
about
it
that.
grind my gears.
Yeah, Mike Metal left NGPW to go to IWA. I don't even really honestly remember that. I think maybe it was on bad terms. I don't know. I can't remember. But yeah, I would have never even remembered that if you had not brought it up. But yeah, that happened. There was a lot of that going on in the Chad days, to be honest. People were jumping ship left and right. You had your loyal guys that you would never see go anywhere else. And then you'd have your guys that would like do something big, and then they would join somewhere else to make the Fed look bad. You had those, the backstabbers. You had the rumor mongers that were friends, quote unquote. I want to be friends with everybody in every Fed, and you know they're telling everybody everything that's going down, so they can be rumor central. It was just a bunch of BS, but you know, you recognized who each person was and what they did, and you just kind of went from there. But NGPW went down because I think again I wanted to take a break, and so we kind of stopped that. And then that's when I brought
Yeah,
back.
because we were both for vacation. We needed to just take another break.
Yeah, and so that's when now we're looking in like the 2008 area, which I brought back RCWF one last time, and this was the last chat dice Fed I ever did. And at this time, it was like the big boys at that time was like Trent, Mr. Highlight, Guy Silencing, John Chaos came back in that huge deal at Homicide.
Eddie Cool, myself, you,
Yeah,
and the Dead Zone.
the Dead Zone. Yeah, but we had like what 4 or 5 months out of that, I think.
Yeah, and then we did the where we kind of stole HPWF, and
Yeah.
you know, all of a sudden we were dead to them.
Yeah, I kind of took HPWF and they didn't like me after that anymore. So all that work of doing the Umbrella Nationals and it was like point because it was like HPWF hadn't done anything in like a year and a half, and so I'm like, oh, you know what? I'll continue HPWF. I'll keep it going, and I had legitimacy to do it. I didn't want to take the name and just like fucking piss all over it or anything like that. I actually legitimately wanted to keep it going. But
Yeah, I mean, we ran by their rules and
yeah,
everything.
we did everything exactly the same, but we just actually had events going. And a lot of those people really didn't like that. And I think to this day they still don't like me after that, but whatever, I don't care. I tried to help them, and they
Especially after I won, our version of the HPWF World Title.
yeah. But so yeah, that version, the last version of RCWF was fun, but it got to the point where you're doing AOL chat matches each week, and you only have like 6 people, 10 people in the chat, and as compared to what you used to have, which is like maxed out, like 22 was the max I think at one time. Then you had like 32 was the max. I mean, we'd max out chats left and right, and now you're looking at like
Right.
10 people in a chat room, and you're calling that like, oh, this is a packed house with 10 people here. It's like, no, it isn't. This is fucking stupid. Why am I even wasting my time sitting here for 12 hours doing a chat match when there's only 12 people in here? 10, 8. This is stupid. This is like, why am I, this is just so dumb. So I'm like, you know what, guys, I appreciate those and I think Homicide was the last one. And I'm like, look,
Yeah, it was.
look, dudes, we had a hell of a run, and it's great that you all are here, but it's obvious. Look around. This is, it has just literally come to this. Chat is served its purpose. It's done now, and so that's when I started looking for options to continue doing this. That wasn't chat, and I went to YouTube. I started using the video games, and I would record my matches holding a floppy disk camera in front of my TV screen, and record the matches doing it like that, and upload them to YouTube each week. And that lasted for a while. The quality is terrible. Some of you actually probably back when they were still on YouTube probably saw some of that stuff. And then that's when
Oh yeah.
Rave and I think it was Rave and Cody Miller showed me about Stickcam, and I'm like, oh, this is cool. So you mean you can actually like do this live with a webcam and stream it? So we did that for like a couple weeks, and then that's when Rave told me about Justin.tv, and I'm like, whoa, what is this? So you can actually like buy a capture card thingy and record your video game live. And then that's when the multimedia era started, was like late 2008, maybe 2009-ish, around there.
Yeah, and then we went from Sitcam to Justin.tv, which I know we shouldn't be saying that here on Hitbox, which we know and love.
Yes, I love Hitbox. I love you long time. But yeah, that's when that started. So early '09 or really late '08 was when we officially started going, and people just kind of joined more and more as we kept it going. And from that moment on, it was RCWF until, of course, the deal that happened, 2 years ago, 3 years ago?
Yeah, something like that.
I just finally said, RCWF has been through a lot. I think it's just time to focus on what I truly like deep down, and it's, as everyone knows, I like horror stuff, I like zombie stuff, I like scary stuff, so I'm like, yeah, you know what, QZW, we'll do that. And, so, that's what happened, and the rest is history, and maybe we'll do a part 2 later on, but this is what happens when you get the two of us together and start talking about history.
Yeah, we kind of, we turn this into history class instead of, hey, let's talk about random stuff. Instead, let's just talk about history because that's what you guys want to know.
Yeah.
Because we've been around since, the dawn of time. We are the dinosaurs. Get used to us.
Yeah, and then real quick, this will be the last thing. You had to deal with BWC. You went over there. You won their world title. Then you came back to RCWF. And tell us a little bit about the deal that you did with Chucky and David Rain over there.
Well, the deal over there was, it was supposed to be like I was supposed to join some stable with David Rain, Chucky, and I guess a certain Fed Runner's old lady. And I being the, well, let's just say the nonchalant kind of, well, I'll just find a way to get to the top, kind of, took one for the team, so to speak, because you remember, because you were talking to me that night. Because I'm like, well, what do I do? Should I do this? Should I do that? And you're like, dude, take it, bring it over here.
Yep. I mean,
So I'm like, I'm sitting there because that night I was actually sitting over at my brother's house. I was babysitting my nephew, and I'm like, should I really do that? And I'm like, you know what? What the hell? Let's just tell him that, you know what? For the past 7 months, whatever you guys thought I was quote unquote fired, that it was all a ploy.
so you left over there, and at one point we were on bad terms, and it
Right,
was
yeah.
all over miscommunication.
Right. It was a miscue because, you're like, well, I'm firing Nathan Moore and I'm firing Nathan James and good luck in their future endeavors. And
Right.
I wasn't around because I didn't know about it until like 3 days later. I'm
Yeah,
like,
you heard about it
wait.
from somebody
I'm like,
else.
wait a second. I got fired? I'm like, who the fuck fired me? You don't fire me. Bullshit. And so I'm like, you know what? Fine. I'll just hang out for 3 months, take it as like a quote unquote no compete clause.
You joined
Hung out
MJ.
with-
You joined MJ's Fed.
Hung out with Jusky for a while.
Yeah.
Then I'm like, you know what? What if I jump ship to BWC?
And they were
What would happen?
They were more than happy to have you on board, weren't they?
Oh, God, yeah. For like weeks, they're like, hey, look who's here. Former RCWF World Champion Nathan Moore's watching. Hey, you can join us if you want. And I'm like, maybe. I'm just sitting here watching.
And so you left, and then their next champion did the same exact thing, right? David Rain?
Yeah. Good old Dark Phantom did it.
Oh, Dark Phantom.
Yeah, David Rain left because he was on bad terms with them anyway, and I guess they were going to try and put the belt back on him, and I guess they screwed him over, and he's like, you know what, screw you guys, I'm coming over here. I'm coming to RCWF with the rest of you guys.
And suddenly everybody in BWC was joining RCWF. There's like seven people. that
Right,
all-
and then you could say the quote-unquote talent exchange was all of a sudden Hammer and Mike Metal went over there.
Yeah. But all right. Well, we'll have to continue this on another the EFED story on another podcast real quickly because I know you got to go to work here soon. Let's kind of skip the subjects here. The NFL. How are your Steelers doing? You think they're gonna? First of all, have they made the playoffs?
We're going to win the division Sunday night. We made the playoffs. We beat Kansas City. We pretty much eliminated Kansas City. So,
Okay.
yeah, we're in the playoffs.
Because I know Detroit is in, and Green Bay slaughtered Tampa Bay, but now they got a match with Detroit next week, and Gil may actually know this. I think once
Winner
confirmed.
gets to be a winner of the NFC North and probably the number 2 seed.
Okay, but Detroit gets in either way, or
Detroit got the seed when Philadelphia lost. They were already in.
okay, so Green Bay has to win this game, or they're out, or will they get wild card?
The loser gets number 6, winner gets number 2, pretty much.
Okay, so there you go. All right, so Steelers, you think they're going to have a good shot in the playoffs?
Well, all we got to do is beat Cincinnati Sunday night, and we can have the division. So then we'd host a wild card game the following week.
Okay. Christmas, as you know, it's on Thursday. What do you want for Christmas?
Oh, don't remind me. What do I want for Christmas? Other than winning the lottery, which, I mean, that's a universal answer. You know what? There's actually... I didn't even buy anything for Christmas for myself.
Well, what if Grimm could bring you something for Christmas on Thursday? What would you ask him to bring you?
Graham, if you could bring me something for Christmas, I'd actually like a pizza from Little Caesars with the pretzel crust and the, actual cheese actually looking good.
So not like a 1 year's worth of WoW card or Xbox One or something like that.
Actually, you know what? He could actually pay for my Spotify Premium after my 3 month subscription ends.
Okay.
I'm like addicted to Spotify. I have like over almost 1,600 songs starred. I listen to it at work. I don't even listen to my satellite radio anymore.
All right. Now we got some questions that were given from the Zonspawn community in our forums, and we're not going to take any live questions because we're running behind on time. But we are going to actually ask the questions who people actually got in the forums and signed in to do. So sign in the forums and ask your questions because it's a top priority. From Gil, he asks, "What kind of games do you like to play?"
Uh, I like to play games like World of Warcraft, you know, the MMOs. I do play Star Wars every once in a while. I play DC Universe every once in a while on PC, not the PS3, sorry, Tank. And like, you know, Euro Truck Simulator, Killing Floor. I'm pretty much like a PC gamer more than I am a console gamer anymore.
Okay. He asks, "Have you ever met anybody in RCW and QZW in real life?"
No, I haven't, but the closest one that I could have actually met would have been Jake Rogers whenever he was actually staying up here in Butler County, which is like only 45 minutes away. But also, I could actually meet Sam, good old Miss Perfection, if I decided to drive over towards Sharon, PA.
And also, the Hammer lives in Pittsburgh.
I know,
Well, why didn't you bring him up?
because a shovel and a hammer, they don't get along.
Maybe that could be a new tag team this season.
Team Toolshed.
Yeah. Team Ace Hardware. All right. From Jay Hare, he asks, "Is a shovel mightier than the sword?"
Ask everybody I've buried.
Good question. Fair enough. From Dawn, she asks, "How many shovels do you have?"
Let's see, that picture I sent you, what, like 4 months ago, there was like 4 sitting there, so I'd say probably close to like 10.
Okay. She asks, "Favorite class to play in World of Warcraft?"
Paladin, because you can get your ass handed to you and you can heal yourself.
Okay. What kind of snack food do you like to eat the most?
Let's see, around this time of year, I like the fruit punch flavored candy canes, but like any other time, Slim Jims.
And she also asked that question to me. I would say if I'm feeling healthy, which I need to do, is fruit, any kind of fruit or vegetables. If I'm feeling like a fat fuck, Samoa Joe, then I'll eat barbecue chips. She asks me, "Did I find my chickens?" And I answer back with, "Yes, actually, I just fed and watered them before we came on with the podcast. So yes, I did." All right, and that'll conclude questions from the forums. Is there anything else you want to add at the end of the podcast? Anything you on your mind you want to talk about?
Let's see. Well, what can I show? Oh, by the way, you people need to start following my channel. I am part of Zombspawn, and I do cast every once in a while if I actually have time. It may be World of Warcraft, and it may be a lot of music, but, you know, come in, sit, chill out, and just don't backseat game.
And maybe we'll see Nate Moore as a guest caster in January on a weekend.
Hopefully, if I can start getting weekends off. And yes, Graham, on Hitbox. That is hitbox.tv/x Nate Moore X.
Awesome. Because Hitbox is awesome.
Yes, I love it here. It's a lot better. I mean, don't get me wrong, I did like Instagib, but I like Hitbox a lot better.
I loves the Hitbox. I was chatting it up with Oxy earlier today. She's such a sweetheart. All right. So, anything else, or will that do it for you?
I think I'm good.
All right. Also, real quick, QZW, you've been running around at Green Void trying to find out the location of Tad Peters. Do you think Nathan Moore is finally going to squeeze it out of him?
Well, if he keeps making more penile joke, I'll have to actually laugh even more.
So, are you planning on beating the shit out of him to find out where Tad is, or are you gonna try to find the information from somebody else?
Well, I mean, it's always fun to beat up a big old green booger, so I'd say bring him on, you know, let's have him beat snot out of him.
And for my very last question for you, because I know you got to get ready to go to work, once you do find Tad Peters, what are you going to do?
The family will be back together.
Really? Well, that's a very interesting and I'll just say interesting way to end off the podcast by that note. So you have a good one, and have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and we'll see what happens with the adventure of Nathan Moore tomorrow night on QZW Wrestling.
All right, sounds good. I'll try to be around.
All right, thanks for joining us on Zombie Talk number 4. All right, now to wrap things up, we've got Gil coming in here with the QZW report. So, Gil, what have you got? What have you got for us for last week's QZW report?
Oh. Okay, so in Livewire, DJ Silva defeated Scotty Hollywood, proving that while Cletus is popular, he's not very good at security.
All right, but hold on, wait. Before you go on to the next one, we got to do this the right way. As you announce the matches, you have to give us 1 through 5 stars.
Well, that's gonna be hard because I sped through Livewire. 3 stars.
Just guess. It doesn't have to be legit.
3 stars for this one.
Okay.
Cole Rayner defeated Joseph Harcourt and Volano, proving his mettle as a cruiserweight champion. 4 stars.
Mm-hmm.
Jarek Vanders and Raji went to a double DQ when it was found that Raji's moveset was too generic for a clean finish. 1.5 stars because I don't like double DQs.
But what about the reason why they got double DQ'd? Buzz came out and attacked them both.
What was it again?
The match ended because Buzz came out.
Oh yeah, it was Buzz.
Yeah.
Buzz gets 5 stars because he's got the best music ever.
Whoa, 5 stars for Buzz, and he wasn't even in the match?
Well, yeah. I mean, he ended a Raji match.
Okay, continue.
Doug Bevers defeated Ace Mage, continuing Ace Mage's terrible loss streak. I mean, 2 stars because I don't like seeing the outright cruelty towards Ewoks or whatever he is. And then Hair Wolfgang defeated Gil Thunderstrike.
5 stars.
3 stars.
3 stars.
Oh no, it's just the start of a beginning. It can't get. It's gonna get better.
Okay, all right.
All right, on to Contagion. Tuss Blubberson defeated Chris Jones, 4 stars. Very nice. William James defeated Vlad Alucard and Dr. Payne in the backstage. 3.5 stars. An extra half star for Dr. Payne just showing up. Eddie Cool defeated Josh D, so 2.5. The Clear Clowns defeated Norns. 3 stars, which is apparently 2 more brain cells than Norns has at the moment. Jack Johnson over Razor Sharp. I didn't watch this match, so 0 stars.
No stars?
I see Razor Sharp and I get bored, and apparently when you wrote up, actually, I got a reason. When I see your things you posted in the Skype, you posted Razor Sharp as Razor SHZRP, so 0 points because you faced a knockoff Razor Sharp.
So he doesn't get. So he gets a Kiro star.
He gets a Kiro star. He needs to find the RCWF Championship belt so he can get all the stars back.
Okay.
Sean Libby defeated Leo Reigns, 5 stars because those two deserve it.
Whoa.
And it'll piss Jack Johnson off.
Whoa.
Actually, Libby and Leo Reigns are probably 2 of the best talents on Contagion, in my opinion. Definitely 3 and 4 at the moment. Behind the main event, Domino and Big D. 5 stars, of course.
Very good. And
then Shimmer. First off, we had the Beautiful People over the Dungeon of Doom. 2 stars for that. Layla wins a 6-woman Shimmer Battle Royal match. Battle Royals always get 3s because they're pretty much standard. Julie defeated Mandy Michaels. 4 stars. Very enjoyable. And then the main event was Paige over Goddess Dawn, AJ Lee, and Jessica Havoc. I really didn't want Paige to win. So probably 5 stars, but 3 stars for the finish.
Okay, and since you work in the movie business, and you know all about who else works in the movie business, which is Siskel and Ebert, or I don't know what their new names are now. I think one of them died. But what would you give last?
They're both dead.
Oh, they're both dead now?
I'm sure Siskel's dead, but Ebert's definitely dead.
Okay. Well, we'll just do the G and G then. G and T then. Would you give last week's QCW one thumbs up, two thumbs up, one thumbs down, or two thumbs down?
Two thumbs up. Big, great show for the return.
Okay. Well, there you go. You heard it from Gil and the QCW report. And what do you think is going to happen next week on QCW?
Me and Chen, we're going to beat up the Reich.
And do you think Nathan Moore is going to beat up Green Void?
I thought he already did that. Sure, why not?
And do you think John Chaos is actually going to get sweet ass ring attire?
He doesn't already. I mean, really, he could show up in a onesie with socks on it and he'd be in the best ring attire.
And do you think that Chris Jones is going to show up even more nakeder than he was last week?
Probably. It's Chris Jones.
Okay, well, that's all I have for you. Thanks for joining me on Zombie Talk Podcast number 4, and hopefully we'll see you next Monday. Alright guys, that'll do it for the Zombie Talk Podcast number 4. Thanks everyone for listening, and good stuffs. Hope you enjoyed the nostalgia memories down memory road of Nathan Moore in history. That'll do it for this podcast this week. We'll be back next Monday with Tommy Spud for podcast number 5. And hopefully Gil will be back again for the QZW report for what will happen tomorrow night. And remember, you can always scroll down and see what is going to happen here on this channel and see who's next on the podcast. And guess what? January will be released next week. So you'll get to see who is the next podcast guest for next month very soon. But that'll do it for this, and we'll be right back for tonight's game of the night, which will be Silent Hill on the PlayStation. So we'll be right back with that, with a brand new intro edition of something about someone driving a forklift from last week. I don't know. We'll see it in the intro coming up next. See you later, guys.